This is Spilled Ink.
If I hadn't done 6 months worth of work, gone through all these consultations, and I mean, it was at the point where he would go out on Saturday night and have some drinks, and then he would get more ideas for his tattoo, and then he would start blowing up my phone with all these song lyrics and shit.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spilled Ink. I'm here with Michael Patrick. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he's been tattooing for 15 years. Hey Mike.
Hello.
For those people who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and how you got started in art and then how tattooing came into the picture for you?
Well, my name is Michael Patrick, and I'm a tattooer here in Pittsburgh. I own Milestone Tattoo here in Dormont. It's a suburb outside of Pittsburgh. Pretty much got into art at a really young age. I had an older brother who drew and painted all the time, and I kind of just wanted to be like him. So every time he drew, I drew. Like, we would draw our favorite G.I. Joes and then write little stories about them. And then, Ninja Turtles came along. So then I just started drawing Ninja Turtles. And then I found comic books. And I think around that time, Image Comics came out. And that was like the highlight of comic book art. It had like Jim Lee, Wills Portasio, like all these big name comic book artists. Mm-hmm. So then I just started drawing comic books, and then I was making up my own superheroes and, writing little bios about them and trying to get into the comic book industry at a very young age. Like, I had to have been like maybe 12. And after meeting a bunch of my favorite comic book artists, which I'm not going to name names, basically they were just like, hey, the industry's already flooded. You're better off not trying to draw comics, but maybe just do it for fun. Maybe make something for fun on your own.
Right.
So it kind of like set me back a little bit, because I'm like, oh, well, what's the point of like drawing comics if everyone's already done all the comics,
Right.
But at that time, all those artists were just doing renditions of heroes that have been around for years.
Right.
And that's pretty much what I just wanted to draw, the X-Men. Like, I didn't even care if I got to make up my own thing. So but I still kept on, drawing comics and superheroes, and I think it was probably in my early teens, maybe 15 or something. My friend, his older brother, got a tattoo, and I've always seen tattoos. Tattoos have always been in my life. They've always been in like the shadow of my life. You know what I mean? Like, every time I saw a tattoo, it was always a point where I was like, oh, I have to look at this. Like, this is crazy. It's on your skin. And so this was like the first one that I could actually talk to someone about. Like, hey, how did it feel? What was the process?
Right.
And after that, I was like, oh man, like, I want to draw what was on his arm.
Right.
I guess that's also the time where like kind of new school was coming in. That's what they were calling it. But it was basically just like taking a flat image, warping it, throwing a fat outline around it with color. You know what I mean? Like, it was real basic. It was also a turning point, because that's when artists like Gunnar and even Jimmy Litwack, Joe Capobianco, all those guys were like blowing your minds with what tattoos could do. That's from where I was,
right,
my standpoint. Whenever I looked through a tattoo magazine, that was it. Like, oh shit, like, those guys are doing, everything that you could do. My first tattoo was a basic, black and gray line, tattoo. It had no dimension, no shape. But it was after that I was just like, oh, this is something I could do. And then after that, I just started just drawing a ton of it. I was drawing up stuff for other people to get tattooed. And then it was just a matter of patience, right? Because finding an apprenticeship is like, you'd better off be finding the holy grail, what I mean, when it comes to getting an apprenticeship. Unless you just like buy some bullshit offline and you decide to, I don't know, practice on all your friends until you figure it out. Those are your options.
Right.
Either suffer through the process of trying to find someone who wants to teach you, wants to put in that kind of effort and attention into you, or you just do it out of your ass.
Well, what was that like for you? Because I'm not really, like, in Brooklyn, it was different. I have a similar story to yours also. What was it like for you going out, having no family in tattooing and, pretty much banging on doors?
Another friend of mine who actually, it was a friend of my sister's, he got an apprenticeship. And he pretty much like walked me through most of my learning how to tattoo. As he was learning, I was just like kind of like following in his footsteps, learning behind him until he got into a shop. And every shop that he got into for a while, he would bring me in, and vouch for me and be like, hey, like,
That's awesome.
teach this guy some stuff, learn from him. If I were to say I owe my career to anyone, it would be Mark Patrick.
That's very cool. Do you travel a lot too?
I do, yeah.
Is it tough like traveling a lot when you own a shop, or is it like the guys you have there just pretty much like run the place themselves?
You know what? My shop is actually a private studio.
Okay.
It is a storefront, so it's anyone can walk in. But after working for other people, given that percentage and being in that kind of politics shop, I just wanted to open up something simple, something where I could just travel whenever I wanted, come and go whenever I wanted. I hated having to ask, an owner of a shop if I could go live my life because they needed to make their money. And if I wasn't there making their money, then what was the point of having me there? They could bring someone else to fill that chair.
Did you ever have like someone like that was very abrasive to that idea?
All the time. And I also don't understand like the politics of traditional tattoo etiquette, which is something I've had to learn through like getting scolded by old school guys throughout my career, where I would hit the streets and I would flyer on the streets and I would hand my business card out to everyone, where these like older guys are like, you're making us look bad. This isn't that kind of industry. This isn't that, you can't just like put all your tattoos up on a piece of paper and like hang that up in a coffee shop. Like, that's not how we do it.
Right.
But that gave me such a great turnaround because 15 years ago, no one's looking for you, right?
Right.
You have to go put yourself in front of them at every opportunity. And this is before Instagram, so
Right.
like how else are you, everyone in your city, going to know who you are unless you go out and you say, hey, this is me. This is the work I can do. Come to me.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like I have that conversation a lot, especially with my brother. Like the old school guys, like they're still like kind of stuck in those ways where anything new is almost like, I guess, threatening.
Yeah.
To like the way it used to be, and I never got that. I mean, I'll probably turn into that guy when I'm older, but back in the old days, this is how we did it. But
yeah,
and you can't be like that today because the way I even found you on Instagram, I would have never found you before. Actually, a funny story. I was watching. You ever see the movie Milk Money?
That sounds super familiar.
Yeah, the kid's name in it is Michael Patrick Connor. And I was actually watching that movie and I'm like, let me see if this kid did anything else. So I checked Instagram and I typed in Michael Patrick and you popped up.
Oh, yeah?
And it said Michael Patrick Tattoo. I'm like, tell me this kid turned into a tattoo artist. So I clicked on Michael Patrick Tattoo and I saw your work and I'm like, oh shit, if it is him, that's awesome. But the work was awesome.
Thank you.
It was great. It was great. And I love new school too. So I was just kind of like taken by it. Did you always know you wanted to do new school, by the way?
I didn't have I don't feel like I had another choice. And I actually consider trying other things, but I'm just like, I just keep going back to that color work. You know what I mean? Like that's how my mind wraps its head around art. It's just like shading and shadows and different tones of color. I do black and gray, but I don't. It has to be really, really minor. And I give a lot of credit to black and gray artists, gray wash artists, because they can create these tones and this depth out of just this one shade where in my head, like I've just always done that with color. It just seems more logical,
Right. I feel you get a better contrast too. I mean, some of these guys are wizards with what they do. You're right.
Yeah.
The contrast on people's skin, I'm the same way. I like that color. I enjoy doing black work, but the color is really what makes certain things pop.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to actually get into doing more like the sticker looking tattoos where it has like the bright white outline.
Yeah.
To give it like that contrast. I'm actually really into that right now.
I enjoy those too. And I don't really know where that came from. The first time I saw that was one of my Australian friends did that at the Hawaii convention. And I was like, at first I was like, oh man, that's that much white is just not going to look right once it heals. You know what I mean? That was I thought the same thing. But when he added that really faint gray wash shadow on the other side of that white to show a little bit of the rays.
Mm-hmm.
It was just brilliant.
Yeah, it took it to another level. I agree.
Yeah, it's amazing that you think something like nothing else could be done, and all of a sudden it just is, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think that was possible.
Well, yeah, there's still certain things that I look at. I'm like, how the fuck do these guys do this?
Accident. I'm sure most of it just started out as an accident. It was like a happy mistake.
How long did it take you to develop that style? Or like, did you consciously put into it, or you just did like tattoos every now and then it kind of just became what you did?
I just drew everything from scratch. And I think when you draw everything from scratch, your style just naturally comes out.
Right.
It's just something it's your signature. It's nothing that I had to ever work for. Like all my tattoos, I don't see it, but everyone else tells me that they could pick it out. They can recognize that's a Michael Patrick tattoo, at least here in the city. Where I can't see it because that's all I see anyway.
Right.
And I think it's a form of an illustrative new school, because I still like to use a lot of lines, and there's a lot of neo-traditional in their influence as well.
Those two styles, neo-traditional is probably the first one, and new school is a close second, but traditional in itself is like difficult to do, and neo-traditional, to step that up one notch is like, I don't know. I still don't know how you do it. I would love to actually like come watch like new school guys, because you mentioned Jimmy Litwalk too.
Oh yeah.
When he first came out on the scene on Ink Master in the first season, I think I was going into college, and I was like, damn, like I've never even seen a tattoo like that before Ink Master.
Oh yeah. I was following Jimmy Litwalk in tattoo magazines. I mean, before Ink Master, I think was even a thought, and that was the only place you could see these guys. There was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. I think maybe MySpace was starting to develop, which says how old I am. But the only way to see like these tattoos was you would go down to your local drugstore and just flip through Tattoo Artist magazine.
Right.
It would give you their name, and it would give you where they were from, and that was all you got.
How long we've come, huh?
Oh yeah.
We've come such a long way with Instagram, and I think we're spoiled now.
Honestly, I think that's why tattoo art in general it's so amazing, is because of Instagram. I'm able to see people all the way on the other side of the world just doing the craziest shit that
for sure
I never thought was possible. I mean, the people in Australia and all over Europe are now doing some of the best work I've ever seen, where before you would see like some guy sends a picture in from Ireland and you're like, oh, that's garbage. But now everyone's like, oh, this is the standard now? Like, this is the level of tattooing that you have to be at? Okay, well, let's all strive for that.
Exactly.
If everyone's running that race, the finish line is just going to keep getting further and further, and you're just going to have to keep running faster.
Yeah, and the great thing about it, too, is you could literally directly contact that guy in real time and find out what he's doing and how he's doing it.
Yeah, chances are he'll even post a video showing you exactly how he's doing it, which was unheard of when I started tattooing.
Yeah, you had to go to the conventions and hopefully not put money down for a booth if you were just starting out, and just like watch these guys.
Yeah, honestly, I would say I learned more from getting tattooed by these guys than anything else. Like just watching them tattoo me, is where I got pretty much most of my knowledge.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Who was one of the bigger names that you got tattooed by? That you always wanted to?
You know what? I would say the last tattoo I got was done by Lindsay Baker. She's phenomenal. And watching her tattoo something on me, her hand movement, how she was laying her shadows down from start to finish, you kind of like retain all that information, and it psychs you up. So whenever you do a tattoo, you start applying those techniques, and some of them stick,
right,
and some of them don't. But it just adds to your arsenal of tricks and your skill set.
Sure. And especially in the style that you tattoo in most often, I'm sure it's great to watch somebody who you admire and who's like ahead of the game do it also.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey everyone, I love putting out this content for you, and I'd be really interested in hearing your input. Is there something you want to hear me talk about or ask your favorite artist? If so, shoot us an email at spilledinkttatpod@gmail.com or hit us up on Instagram at spilledinkofficial. What would you say is your most difficult tattoo like to date? Was it new school or was it like something else?
You know what? I did a mandala, and I would say that was probably the most stressful tattoo that I think I've ever done in my life. And I vowed to never do another one ever.
You're actually not the first guest to say that either.
Yeah.
I say the same thing. The mandalas they'll get you every time.
It sounds terrible to say, but like straight lines and circles are just not my thing. Like they stress me out to no end. And then if you have to repeat a pattern, like even doing letters, like I hate doing script because I feel like when you run a line, you basically have to run it from start to finish in order to get that smooth, the same, thickness all the way through. So if you're
right,
if even one part of that word didn't get completely solid, you got to go back into it. You have to be so gentle going back into it, because if you even dare make one loop thicker than another, it's going to shine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no room for error.
Yeah, none at all. So I usually tell people I'll do words, but no more than 3 words. and that falls under the AI is like no more than 3.
That's great. Are you at the level now where you like your screening process? You could pick and choose what you want to do, I'm sure.
Yeah, in a sense. I haven't mastered the art of making people believe that I am more exclusive than I really am. Like I see it all the time. Like artists are like, "Oh, my books are now open." Well, my books are always open. You know why? Because my lights are always on. My car insurance comes every month. Like my books are never closed. And I do feel like I work harder than a lot of artists just because I work 5 days a week and I do 2 medium to large tattoos a day.
Wow.
Which I could if I only took 1 tattoo a day, I could probably span that out a lot further.
Right.
But I don't think my books will ever be closed. Like if you want to book, I don't know, like 2 years from now, I don't see why I wouldn't put you in there, like but I guess that's the art of being exclusive. If people think, oh, well, he's not taking appointments, so when he does, I need to hop on that right there, right then, and throw as much money at it. So I make sure that I get it.
I guess these guys too, who have like hundreds of thousands of followers, you have to like get them for at least 8 hours, I'm sure. And like it's costing you a couple grand just to walk in the door.
Yeah.
It's tough. I would book people 2 years in advance too. I don't know how these guys do it. I mean, you don't know what you're doing 2 months from now or 3 months from now, but you're right, get them in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Switching gears a bit, who was the coolest person that you ever tattooed?
I would say most of my clientele is really cool. I would say if celebrity wise, the lead singer for The Format, I gave him his first tattoo. And a lot of people don't know who The Format was. He later started a new project, and that band was called Fun. And they put out a couple big hits, I would say in like 2010. He's really the only celebrity they ever tattooed. And I did the simplest line drawing of his dog on his arm, celebrity-wise. But most of my clientele was just really amazing.
Yeah, I feel like that's the job that we're in. We deal with such a different group of people, like such an eclectic mix, that I love hearing different stories that come into the shop. And I'm sure you doing it, almost 3 times longer than me, you've had your fair share, not only of like difficult people, I'm sure, but like just the great stories that come out of certain tattoos, or like just the different, people that walk into your shop.
Yeah.
Does one story stick out in your head of like either a really difficult person coming in or a really awesome person coming in?
Because there's so many awesome people, the one that would stand out would be a difficult. And it was a guy who wanted a cover up, and we probably did back and forth consultations for about 6 months. And he would bring me in every month like packets of images, and these images would have like stories to them. And he was like naming characters, and I'm like it was like a whole thing. Like he was writing a book that he wanted on his arm that initially was going to cover up this terrible tattoo that he had, and it was all based around like this trip that he took to New Mexico where he saw this band, and it, like for 6 months we went back and forth. And anytime dealing with a cover up, a lot of it has to be done on the skin. If you're, you place your main image down, but sometimes you have to expand pieces of it to cover up sections that maybe it didn't fully cover. So a few days before his appointment, I sent him a sketch and I told him, hey, you may not understand a lot of these like symbols that are in it, but it's my way of knowing where things go.
Right. You send them the stencil.
Yeah. And a sketch to go with it, to give him a rough sketch. And he was like, what is this? Why are you sending me a doodle? And I was like, what did you want? But initially through like conversation, he was like, I was under the impression that I was going to get a fully rendered painting to show what was going to happen. And I was like, how am I going to, like, if I did a full color rendering for every tattoo that I did, I wouldn't have any time to have a real life. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You kind of just have to trust me. That's what you have to do. And he, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you ever look up my Yelp or my Google reviews, he fucking trashed me. Like, I even got a letter from the Better Business Bureau from this guy. I'm not even kidding, telling me to like resolve this problem because it all stemmed from he feels like I stole his $100 that was his deposit.
Wow. Oh, he never came in to get it.
No, he backed out because I didn't give him a full color rendering, and he now at this point after 6 months did not feel confident that I was going to do the job.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, well, your deposit's forfeit, right? You sign the release, it's forfeit.
Right.
And he was like, I want my money back. And I was just like, no. Like normally, if I hadn't done 6 months worth of work and
right.
You know what I mean, like gone through all these consultations and I mean, it was at the point where he would go out on Saturday night and have some drinks, and then he would get more ideas for his tattoo, and then he would start blowing up my phone with all these like song lyrics and shit, and I just took it all with a stride. Like he's just enthusiastic about his tattoo. So
right, people don't understand the amount of time that you actually put into, especially back and forth consultations, but drawing it as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. That deposit that you give us, like, that's not nearly enough to cover the amount of hours that I put into drawing at home.
Exactly.
Next to my dog while watching, The Office. Like, it's hours worth of stuff. But if you look up, my Yelp or something, you could read his review, and it's gnarly. It really.
I definitely am going to. Do you remember anything that he said in there? Just like a little snippet, a little preview.
Well, I mean, he goes off and he's like, it starts off with like, avoid at all costs. This guy will just steal your money, and like, just that's how it starts off, and it's pretty good. That when my phone alerted me that it had posted, I was sitting at dinner with like probably like a dozen other tattoo artists. And I was reading it, and one of the other guys next to me was like, "What is that?" And then like I just read it out loud to the entire table, and it was hilarious. And it just so happened that like I had just gotten to where I was going when he did this, but I was like, "Man, I'm going to use this $100 to buy everyone around."
That's great. I feel like Yelp does that though. Like nobody ever leaves a good some people do if they're really nice, but mostly you just get bad reviews because people think they're like these critics that have this voice.
Yeah.
I can't even go by Yelp reviews anymore.
You shouldn't because people don't make an effort. Normally, if you went out and you had a really great meal, the last thing you think of is like, oh, I should take time out of me having a great time and a delicious meal to write a great review. But when it's bad, you just need to get that negative energy out of you. Like MF everything and let the whole world know that this is the worst place ever when it's like, dude, it's one bad meal. One bad meal. I don't like it.
It's so true.
Yeah. Come back tomorrow. You might have the most amazing meal there.
So who's changing the game for you right now that you follow on Instagram or Facebook?
I would say the Australians for me right now. And I know that they're not probably the ones that started a lot of the really big trends that I'm loving right now. Mm-hmm. But they're the ones that are like pushing it the hardest. There's I don't know if you've ever have you heard of Leisure Bandit?
No.
Leisure Bandit is he's a friend of mine. He's from Australia. I only get to see him when we do the Hawaii convention, but he does all of his tattoos have the exact same theme, and it's like 80s rad art. Like if he does a
Okay.
dog portrait, that dog portrait is 80s out, and it like has like 80s glasses, sunglasses. You know, they're doing like these like just super fun tattoos. There's a lot of guys from over there that are just, I feel like, are crushing it. It's where I think new school is going to be headed.
Yeah, I really haven't delved into the Australian scene. A lot of the people I follow are like from Russia or the UK, just because of like that pepper shading style.
Oh yeah,
I'm really into that. But no, Australia. I feel like Australia is untapped at this point. I mean, I guess it's big for new school.
yeah.
But do you head there a lot or?
I've actually never been to Australia. I do go out to Hawaii twice a year, and I tattoo out there. And one of the times I go is for the Hawaii convention, and some Australians come over as well, and they at the same shop. We all do the convention with the same shop together.
Okay.
But yeah, there's just a lot of talent. The people I work with in Hawaii are just phenomenal as well. I could rattle off a list of artists in Hawaii that are just incredible at what they're doing right now.
Yeah, please send them over to me when you can. How's it tattooing in Hawaii though?
It's awesome. I think I do really good over there because most of the stuff isn't new school or color work. You know, it's a tropical island, so you know I think people are like, oh, won't color fade? Well, yeah, if you in 10 years it'll fade, yes. But your body naturally disposing of it, you know, or if you hang out in the sun every single day, then yeah, but it's a tattoo. It's not, you know, it's supposed to age with your body. I feel like
Right.
that's what makes tattoos awesome.
Yeah, I feel like people get like this distorted view too of, especially color work when it comes to like a Photoshop or these different editing programs that they see on Instagram now, and they come in almost with an unrealistic expectation of how it should look and then how it should heal. Have you ever like ran into that issue?
Absolutely. You know, and I tell people, you got to realize whenever I took the photo, it was fresh. It was absolutely fresh. You know, I have a good lighting setup, but yeah, it's not going to look that bright and that strong once it heals. Like you're looking
Right.
at it through the layers of your skin tone will dull it out. Every picture that's on Instagram, unless people are posting, you know, like healed photos, but I think even the healed photos are under, you know, like extremely well lit, you know, lighting, and there's those tricks that we use to, bring out colors a little better, whether you're using full spectrum lights or high res camera. But ultimately, the tattoo has to speak for itself.
Right.
If someone's going in and literally like re-outlining their tattoos in Photoshop and like re-applying the white in Photoshop, like that's just shitty. That's not a real representation of their work. And I like to think that they're not sleeping well.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys too. That's like in a really dark room, and the only thing that's lit is the tattoo. I'm like, that's not how people live their life. Like, I feel like the best photos are like the ones that you take outside. Like that's how people will see the tattoo. You know?
I mean, that's what it is. You have your Lume Cube with your polarized film and your CPL lens. And you can literally like adjust it to knock out the entire glare of a tattoo. Even that, all that is doing is making that tattoo look clearer.
Right.
Which, if there's any faults in that tattoo, are going to show even more. So I think that's like a risky thing for a lot of artists, that if you want to take that route and use the Lume Cube with the CPL lens in the dark room, you're risking showing all your flaws if there is any.
Right.
And if there's not, then I say use that thing all the time because it's brilliant.
I feel like these tattoos too, they're so good on their own that even to, I guess they're trying to separate themselves from the saturated market, but I feel like those tattoos, it almost takes away from how good the tattoo already is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'd rather scroll past that because that's not a real representation. I mean, I don't know if a client thinks of it like that, but as a fellow artist, that's how I always see it. I'm like, just don't try so hard. Like that's a solid tattoo.
If you ever took a photo of your tattoo at a convention, it just kills the tattoo. And in a sense, it's a nice alternative that if you can't take it outside in the natural light, otherwise you could do an amazing piece at a convention and no one will ever see it because you can't get a decent photo of it.
Yeah, those lights at conventions are horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it has its pros and cons, I guess, in a sense, but there is a, when you see some photos just look like they were overdone, extremely overdone. And I'm the same way. I'm just like, I'd rather see what that actually looks like.
That's why you ever follow Tattoo Truth Fairy?
I don't. I'm going to though.
You have to. He calls people out too, and some of these tattoos are sick. But some of them, one of the guys used Procreate to go back and darken his lines.
Really?
And he just calls the shit out of him. Yeah, and like people in the comments are just ripping him up.
How does he know though?
I don't know. I think he's a tattooist himself, but he just dissects these people's work, or people who have reputations of editing heavily, because he'll contact the person who is tagged in the photo too, who got the tattoo, and have them send him a healed photo of it.
Man,
it's wild. Yeah, you got to check it out. It's awesome.
But yeah, I absolutely will, because I feel like if you're gonna cheat and Procreate, like, you should do it to where it would never be noticed.
Yeah, don't use the monoline brush.
Yeah.
Use literally anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be pretty obvious, because I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Like, being able to look at a tattoo and be like, oh.
But
yeah,
I feel like it's an inaccurate representation of what I'm selling.
Because what you're selling is your entire atmosphere. It's where the lighting that you're taking the photo under, the colors that you use in the tattoo. And I think editing tattoos started out as just like listen, I just want to like pull the natural colors up, because I'm taking it under extremely warm lights, and that's not really the way it looks. But it like everything, it just goes overboard.
Exactly. Yeah. So what advice would you give like a client walking into your shop who has that unrealistic expectation, like just to make the process smoother when they first walk in?
Typically, I've never really dealt with anyone having unreal expectations of what colors I would use, or how bright I could make something appear. Usually that all falls under like aftercare. Like I tell everyone, like, the way your tattoo looks now will change. Like, some of this will lighten up. Some of this will, it'll dull out under the layers of your skin. If you want it to be brighter, you could always reapply, in a sense.
Right.
Get things touched up, darken things up. Typically in the tattoo process, I try to foresee all that beforehand.
Okay.
So when I'm doing my tattoo, I try to push that contrast to when it heals, it's as accurate as when it was finished. Hence, if it heals correctly. Most of the unreal expectations that people come into me with is price-wise, where people just assume, like, can't you just get this done in 5 hours and it be like a perfect thing? And it's like, no, I'm not a Ink Master champion. I'm a local tattoo artist that,
I feel like Ink Master ruined that for tattoo artists across the country.
Like, I could give them the option, right? You could be like, listen, I'll get this done in 5 hours. We'll see how it turns out. I'll just blast through this, but don't scrutinize me afterwards, because I'm not getting $10,000 for it.
So what's like your ideal client?
Honestly, the perfect client is someone who sees a drawing that I posted and just wants it and is willing to pay for it. Someone that just walks in and they're like, hey, do you have anything that's Star Wars? I'm like, yes, I do. Do you have anything that's ocean? Yes, I do. And then they just give me a beautiful spot to tattoo it on them, and they sit like a champion. Like, that's ideal. But that happens like maybe, I'd say 1 in 50. I get that guy that's just like,
I would agree.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
I would agree. They're definitely few and far between.
Yeah.
All right, man. So we're coming about to the end of this. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you want people to know about, or anything you want to promote?
Pretty much just promoting myself. The other side project that I've been working on with my lady is called Main Parade.
Okay.
It's kind of like it started out as an alternative Disney apparel type thing for like pop culture, and just something creepy and fun that her and I got to do together, and it started to take off. That's really the only other project that I'm working on at the moment.
Nice. Is there a page that you guys have that I could check it out?
Yeah. We actually have an Instagram. It's just called Main Parade. and it's fun. We sell T-shirts and tarot cards and pins and stickers, and it's something that I can do that's not. It's still artistic, but not tattoo related.
Right. I'm sure tattooing takes up a huge amount of your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Michael. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you run.
Absolutely.
Thanks for everything. And if you're ever in New York too, just give me a ring and we'll grab a drink or something.
Absolutely. I would. Yeah, that would be great.
All right, Michael. Thanks again, brother.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's it for this week's episode with Michael Patrick. To check out more of Michael's work, follow him on Instagram at Michael Patrick Tattooist or visit milestonepgh.bigcartel.com. Tune in next week where I speak with Adriana Hollow from New Orleans, Louisiana, and she offers an interesting approach to a controversial topic.
My color palette is maybe like a little bit more limited because you want to use colors that are strictly complementing the skin tone.
Spilled Ink is produced by Fulton Street Music Group. Our producers are Cleo Kolisopoulos and Alex Fulton. Our music is by Cat Blaster. I'm your host, Mike Maldonado. Follow us on Instagram at Spilled Ink Official.